Conflict and hard moments arise in life, whether you're a business leader, a parent, or a spouse. In our home, we talk about how our response is our responsibility. So stick around for today's episode as we talk about taking the high road.
Hey guys, welcome to the Something New Show. I'm Mindi Linscombe, your host, and here we like to learn how to live a life worth celebrating. And today, I love to bring him to the studio. This is my husband and partner in crime, Jordan Linscombe. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, Mindy. Hey, everyone. It's great to be with you.
We are going to talk about today something that I literally hear about all the time from friends, from coaching clients, from colleagues, just how hard it is to do the right thing when all you want to do is blast the people that maybe hurt you or did something wrong or whatever it might be. And there are moments that we're going to talk through that are healthy, but we have something that we like to call high road living. And in high road living, it means you decide what to do, what is right based on your values. And so it's come into play a lot lately in a lot of conversations. I even had somebody right before this episode tell me, a very respectable professional, that this episode's for them. They would like some inspiration when it comes to high road living. So when something happens to you, we always talk about you have a right to respond.
Yeah, because stuff's going to happen. People are going to mistreat you. There'll be misunderstandings. And so we talk a lot about how we respond is our responsibility to all the different things in life that come our way. So it could be in the work world. It could be in parenting. It could be with, working with our kids. We have to talk about this a lot lately. Junior high relationships, professional relationships, team leader, employee relationships. These kind of things come up a lot. And we have to decide, how do you take the high road?
So we're talking to someone, if this is you, that has had a conflict with another human. And if you've had that conflict, like I said, it could be work related, it could be friendship, it could be with a spouse, it could be many different arenas. But if you've had a conflict, then this episode is for you. So our guiding principle is Proverbs 22, verse 1. It's in the Bible, and it says, "A good name is more desirable than riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold." So when we got married, we kind of decided, hey, what do we want our reputation and our values to be about? And both of us really resonated with this verse, and it's been like our life verse for the last 20 years, just to decide that our name and having a good reputation is more valuable than all of that other stuff. So that means sometimes it wasn't always in our favor. And I like to just think about how there have been many moments over our life when, we could have, like the doctor that misdiagnosed our son with cancer. We could have absolutely been very frustrated, hurt, and not that we weren't hurt, but we could have really done some damage to their professional career. But we decided in that moment to take the high road. We ended up finding a doctor that did treat our son, but you can imagine the emotions we both felt. We were angry. Mm-hmm. We were utterly disgusted that we were dismissed when we said we had concerns about our son. And ultimately it led to him having cancer. And because of that misdiagnosis and being dismissed, we got treatment way later, and he was farther along in his stage of cancer than he would have been if he would have listened to us from the onset. So do we have multiple examples?
Many
examples of moments of conflict where we have justifiably we've got good reasons to go after or be upset with someone. And so what I would say to people listening is we had to get really clear on what mattered in the long run. Did we want to have the reputation of going after people and like fighting for our rights? Or were we going to be the people that are like, hey, as long as the situation's resolved, we're okay to amicably walk away. And we don't have to, I think we've been really okay with necessary endings. So I'd love for you to talk about that book, because I think it really helped us when we we realize not every relationship will necessarily come back to hey, we're going to be tight again. So like that doctor, we will not see with our children ever again.
Sure.
But we have to really learn from that book. So if you could talk about that book briefly, I think that would really help some people.
Yeah, for sure. I've learned so much from Dr. Henry Cloud, and he's got 2 great books, one called Boundaries and the other is called Necessary Endings. And so the basic idea is like if something gets to a point of hopelessness, like this person's behavior is not changing, this situation just doesn't have a healthy exit or like any plausible solution, that there are times in life where you have to like cut your losses and move on and have like a healthy, necessary ending. So I think this was an evolution, like growing point for us, because there's some people, they grew up in their family and they're like, no, we're not quitters and we're just going to stick through it even when it's hard. That may be with like, we've had to pull a son from a baseball team because it just was not a healthy leadership environment for him to be in. And then we had this conversation of like, there is no hope that this atmosphere and this thing's going to get better. So we're not quitters, but we're going to pull you from this on purpose. Like after a lot of thought and discussion, right?
Well, and I'm thinking about like business, how there's customers that, you know, we didn't do anything wrong too.
Yep.
And I know people listening have customers that perhaps they delivered their entire product, they fulfilled their end of the deal.
Everything they're supposed to.
Still unhappy customers. And ultimately there's been moments, and it's not regular, but there have been a few moments over the 17 years of owning a business where we just said, hey, this isn't really worth our time anymore. Let's just cut a refund check and kind of like walk away. Like, let's be done, because continuously trying to prove that point isn't always worth it. Mm-hmm. And in the end, you do want happy customers, right? And you might not see eye to eye. They might see that you didn't deliver what you promised, but you know, as a business owner, that you did.
Right.
And that's really hard for me because I get very protective of my team. Like, I know how awesome they are. And so it's hard for me sometimes to listen to maybe someone being unhappy with them because I know they really did try their best, but that does happen. And bringing it back to the team, there are sometimes people on your team aren't a good fit. And so you try your best to make that work. You know, you hired them, or perhaps you're the employee working for someone. And I would say to continually try to resolve disagreements, continually try to listen to, you know, what can I do to make this atmosphere better? Or like something I do every single year as an employer at annual reviews, I say, please tell me if there's something that I need feedback on, or is there something that you need in your workplace, like a supply or an environment wise to accomplish your job better. Mm-hmm. And by getting that feedback, that's how we've literally grown over the years, because, you know, every part of our store is designed with them in mind. The resources that they have, whether that's, you know, a computer or a certain type of workspace, a desk that can go up and down, you know, those are the things that have helped people to stay in their role longer. But we have had some people that weren't a match. And when they aren't a match for our workplace, then sometimes it leads us to Dr. Henry Cloud's book, Necessary Endings, when you go, this situation is hopeless. There is no outcome that foreseeably seems better, like whether they're not improving in their skill set to do the job well, or this job isn't matched to their skill sets. This is not a good match. So we say, hey, this is a necessary ending. And then, like I said, doesn't mean that we have to be tight anymore. We can leave respectably. Like, some people think that having a necessary ending means that you're friends again. It doesn't mean you're friends again. It just means that you professionally decided this isn't a match and you can go your separate ways. But I love that we've always done it with polite, clear communication, so that if you always say, if we run into people in a grocery store and they're uncomfortable, make it so that it's not, you did everything you could do, that you're not the one that's uncomfortable, that they're uncomfortable. And that always freed me up, Jordan, when you said that, because I felt like, oh, I remember teaching piano lessons way back when we were newlyweds, and there was a mom that just never paid me for piano lessons. She would just never pay her bill on time. And I was always nervous to see her. I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed to see her. And you're like, no, don't be embarrassed to see her. She should be embarrassed to see you. Right. She's the one that hasn't paid up. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And it just kind of freed me up to go grocery shopping and not even think about running into her, because, you know, I was the one doing the right thing. She was the one that should feel uncomfortable. Yeah. So I love that even mind shift to think about, if I've done everything I can do, if I've taken the high road and been clear in my communication, expectations, whatever, and something had to end, that there's no sort of awkwardness for me if I see you, this was amicable.
Yeah. And I think we want people to understand, like, boundaries are necessary in your business environment, in your home environment, in your friendships, your close friendships, right? There are those healthy boundaries. That's a part of a healthy life with human relationships. However, conflict will come. And when it does, how can you speak the truth in love, have a listening attitude and ear? But when something has to be resolved or ended, like, do everything within your power to leave that conversation and wrap it all up with dignity, and thinking of that person, and also for the long term. We'll get into that here in a moment. But it will come. Like, if anybody's an entrepreneur or business owner, things like they probably have a couple of stories. Like, we have dozens and dozens.
If people were to ask me right now, what's the hardest part of owning a business? I would say working with people.
Sure.
Because no one is perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. And so there will be conflict. And if people are not good at resolving conflict, they will not be good entrepreneurs. So if anybody were to ask us right now, hey, I want to own a business one day, what skill set should I be working on? And I would say, number one, conflict resolution. You're going to be doing this with your customers. You're going to be doing it with your staff. You're going to be doing it with your partner, whoever it might be. I'm like, learn how to resolve conflict. And if you're in a conflict right now and it is not getting better, I definitely recommend Boundaries or Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. Okay, so what we've found, that there can be moments that are hard as a leader, that you will feel alone in these high road moments because you can't.
So a misunderstanding happens, right?
Yeah.
Someone has one perspective and their take on it. And we've had this. I remember working really hard to get on a family trip where we earned it on that one. Like, we worked, we got our kids out and everything, and then something comes up, in the past. And that's hard because all of a sudden there's an accusation, or there's a story, or there's a perspective on it. And it just changed the mood for the rest of the time off, for the rest of the vacation. But we had to lean into that conflict. We had to lean in to get clarity. And we want people to understand, like, you just have to know, if you want to lead something, if you want to take the helm, those moments will probably come, and you will probably feel alone. And there will be moments where you cannot tell your team or the public, even in a PR type statement, the whole story.
This episode is sponsored by Something Blue 30A. Looking for the perfect vacation spot to disconnect from everything, put your feet in the softest sand, and enjoy a fresh, renovated 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse right on the beach in my favorite place in the world? Well, 30A is situated in the panhandle of Florida, and I'd love for you to check out Something Blue 30A on Instagram and make it the perfect place for your next vacation. That's what I was going to say. Leadership is hard because you can't always tell your side. So, there are appropriate moments to make a statement, to say, hey, this happened. I just want to acknowledge that so-and-so no longer works here, or, this customer service issue was a problem, whatever. There are moments where you have to make an announcement.
And real quick, we said if it's something that impacts the whole team or is towards the whole team, then the whole team is in the conversation.
Yeah, we say it's a need to know. So we only share what you need to know. And so if it impacts your job, if it impacts your team, because you usually email that person for whatever it might be, then there's a need to know. But we only share the details that they need to know. And what I also just hate is there's been so many times over the years that we chose to take the high road by not telling our side. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard because you want to justify, maybe your reason for doing whatever. And like I said, there have been necessary moments to make a statement, but man, I wish I could tell the whole thing. And it's just not always becoming of us if we're going nitty gritty about that. So like I said, with the doctor, with my son, we definitely told people we're not using that doctor anymore. But did we tell them the nitty gritty and blast him online or anything like that? No. But just for people to know, the story was basically we went multiple times and said something's wrong with our son. And I was blown off like I was a crazy person, and postpartum and dreaming of things that aren't really true that could be wrong with him, that I was a worrier. And I was like, actually, I'm not any of those things. And so it took us trying to fight for and advocate for and getting to another doctor in a bigger city before we were actually considered a serious case. And then turned out our son was like stage 4 cancer. So I'm just saying there are many reasons when I wish I could have told my side of the story, but we chose what's the end goal. And based on our values, we chose a good name is more desirable than riches. So, some other things that we should talk to people about is that you will eat the fruit of the seeds that you plant. You always reap what you sow, but what's good to know about that is so do others. So that is probably the thing, Jordan, that has given me peace at night when I wasn't able to tell my side of the story is I think, you know what? I will reap what I sow, but if that principle is true, then they will reap what they sow. Mm-hmm. So that hopefully gives some people some rest and some peace today as they listen, because I hope they start to realize, okay, like if this principle is true, which I've seen it over my entire 43 years on planet Earth to be true. If this is true, then as I make good choices to take the high road, then as that person possibly makes bad choices to, say things that are untrue or whatever it might be. Or how about this? Write a big review online. Like sometimes we get these big old anonymous reviews online and we're like, it's like a bad review. And we're like, who is this? Who wrote this? We have no idea. It doesn't line up with anything. And we're like, somebody just out to leave a bad review.
Having the courage to like have a real dialogue.
Yeah. Like if they really had a problem, I would love to help them and fix that problem. I just don't know who you are and how we can help you. I don't know if any business owner can relate to this. If you've gotten a bad online review, it's like, that is really hard for me to handle because I want to serve them well and make it up to them for wherever we messed up, but we can't if it's anonymous, right? And so what I'm saying though, I go back to that principle of they will reap what they're sowing and I will reap what I'm sowing. I'm fighting to take good care of customers. So hopefully I will always reap what I'm sowing there. And if some people are out in the universe to, tear people down, they'll reap what they sow too.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the really hard moments where it kind of messes up your whole evening, right? We've been there.
Yeah.
Or you had other plans and then you have to stop and resolve a conflict. I think the things that help is remembering your vision for yourself as a person or a leader, remembering the vision for your company or your organization. And then that's where the values kick in. So if people aren't like getting those really clear up front, these are those moments where you're like, okay, what do we stand for? What are we really about when push comes to shove? And that's what's helped us in those low moments of like, okay, let's stick to the course. Doesn't feel good right now, but this will pass. And more good quality things will come out of our work and our efforts. How do we stay the course? How do we see really the long play in what we're doing? And then I think another moment I'd love for you to speak to it is a discernment skill. I think it's a muscle that people have to build. People don't talk about it enough, but just having the wisdom to know like, okay, when do you cut your losses? When do you just eat it? When it's, serving a customer in a conflict or a friendship or a family conversation? When do you just take the injustice? And even though it may not be fair, it may not be true, when do you manage your emotional energy, your physical energy, and be just like, okay, we're gonna wrap this up in a dignified way and move on?
Yeah. That is a muscle you have to discern. I think it's a lot of, at first it was a lot of like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself because this is right.
No, let this person do this to me.
I'm going to defend and justify. And then I started to like, get older and lose some energy. And I was like, I'm tired. I don't feel like fighting this. Just do whatever, make them happy. And then, like I said, I believe what goes around comes around. So it's like, if you're fighting for something wrong and you took advantage of me, too bad, because you know what? It's going to come back to you one day. So, I really talk to my kids about how a lot of drama takes place every day in relationships. And the visual I have is is almost like a ton of clouds. And I say, this is the chaos. This is the dumb stuff that people worry about every single day. This is the emotional energy that people get really charged up about.
The minutia.
And I'm just tired, honestly. And so I tell them, I say, just fly above the clouds. Don't let that bother you. Don't get into it. Don't kind of throw out an opinion when it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I literally think sometimes like, you know what? Even if I gave you my wisdom in this conversation, you really don't care if I gave you my wisdom. So I'm just going to withhold it. It's kind of like why give you this intelligence or this advice if like it's not going to be applicable? So I found myself just being more quiet, listening more, watching them waste a lot of energy on situations, whether that's, you know, people that work for me or whatever. And I listen, I support, I want to encourage them. And then for our kids, I tell them, fly above the clouds, just be above it all. Like right when I drop them off at school, I say, fly above. And they're like, yep, got it. Because something you always say is if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes. And so I think that's the discernment that we've started to really think through. It's like, is this really worth our time? And sometimes it's just not. So does that mean refund the customer, move right along? I mean, I just coached someone to do that the other day. I was like, just refund the customer, move right along. Don't waste any more trying to justify everything you did right, because I know you did, but they will never see it that way. So do you want to keep fighting, or do you want to move right along and keep attracting the right customer to your company? And so that's something we believe that very strongly, that the right people are going to be attracted to this podcast, the people that are working parents trying to do it all. That we're going to, in our coaching business, attract the right customers, the right business owners that definitely want to grow and want to see how we did it. In our bridal shop, we're going to attract the right people. And the more you spend time and energy focusing on the right people and very little on the wrong people, like just wrap that up, make them happy, help them move right along so you can keep getting back into the ring with the right people, I see growth just catapulting for you. You're just going to grow so much faster. Yep. When you look at your days, do you spend the majority on the things that are going wrong, or are you just wrapping those up as fast as possible and going to all the things that could go right? Yeah. That's the way we spend our days.
Wrap it up with dignity, but then also protect your energy, your emotional health, you know, in the long run with it too. You know, there's a couple of things as we wrap up is, there's a saying like the view is better when you take the high road. It might be a bumpy road. It might be hard to get there, but like the view is magnificent. I don't think it's just the view. I think it's the feeling. You know, some people would say conscious, but like for us, like it's in our spirit. We know it just feels so good to come through on the other side of those hard moments. And now we're in our 17th year, you know, from a business perspective, and even more just in life and relationships, where we have done our best. We're not perfect, but we have done our best to say, like, how can we live in this community and see anybody and know that we gave our best to resolve any conflicts, to take the high road on situations. And I just have to say that feeling of living that kind of lifestyle is so worth it for the long play, for the things that are beyond $1,000 refund or whatever it may look like, you know, for a business leader. It's so much more worth it.
And the thing it takes, Jordan, it takes bravery. It is not for the scared, timid people. It takes so much courage to do the right thing, have the hard conversation, to bring up the hard topic, to say, hey, this isn't working out. Can we talk through why? When I coach clients every single day, it's almost like everybody knows what they need to do. And when I tell them, they're like, yeah, I know I need to do that. It's just they don't want to. So I think what we've done is we've just chosen to do the hard thing day after day after day. It's not like we're anything special. We're just normal people with total human flaws, so many of them, and I make mistakes every single day. But what I will say I'm committed to, and I know you are too, is doing the hard thing. We've talked to the parent that's upset. We've talked to the kid that, you know, there was a conflict. We've talked to the customer. We've talked to the colleague. We are not afraid to step into those hard conversations. We don't delegate it. We don't say, oh, we'll hire someone to have those conversations for us. We go in and have them. Mm-hmm. And that is why we're where we are today. I think it's because we've stewarded every little moment and every little conflict and not ran away from it. Yeah. And so as you're listening, you might be someone that's like, you know what? I need to have this conversation. I need to talk to someone. There's a conflict we're having. I want to encourage them to have that conversation with, first of all, it's always good to have that around 10 in the morning, you know, after the morning breakfast routine, all that stuff, get to work and don't have it at the end of the day. Have it when you're fresh. Kind of have a plan in mind, what you want to talk about in the outline. If you are setting up the meeting, let the other person know, I'd love to have a meeting with you about such and such, just a little headline so that they know that you're going to talk about whatever that is on Tuesday, instead of, I hate when people are like, hey, Mindy, can we have a meeting? I'm like, well, yeah, but now
Regarding
you
what?
freaked me out. Like, what is it going to be about?
Take out all the ambiguity.
Yeah,
give
just
a quick headline.
just say, hey, a headline. Hey, I want to have a meeting about our schedule or whatever it might be, and then set up that meeting, have a plan in place, and totally realize that it's possible that you will not come to terms with an agreement. And if it is not an agreement, then be ready to, whatever change necessary ending that might involve. Do that. But you don't need to go around and talk badly about other people based on what took place. And this is something I want to wrap up with. We told our mastermind about this. We've told a few people and they've really loved it, that we have a little signal, whether we're on the phone, we're in a meeting, maybe we're doing an interview, maybe we're having a customer service, and you have a little signal. If you can't see because you're listening, Jordan just will lift up his hand at a little, 45-degree angle, at an angle. So it's like a little, a little ramp with his hand. And it just symbolizes high road, because we want to live in a high road way. We want to live with taking people as if they are worthy of respect. So again, we've never always agreed with people, but I feel like we've treated them respectfully. Mm-hmm. We've treated them with dignity. We've never spoken bad about them to other people. We kind of carry on believing that they will get whatever they dish out. We're going to treat them respectfully. It wasn't a match. We're going to move on forward. And again, a need to know practice for when you have to report back to your team. Let me explain to them just what I need to know. And I even tried to think of something nice to say about people when we have a necessary ending. I try to say, oh man, I sure loved so-and-so that used to work here, but it was no longer a match, that just didn't work out, and we're hiring such and such now, or whatever it might be. Because the more I do that, I hope that when I'm not in the room and they're talking about me, I hope they're saying good things about me too. Yeah. That I was a good person to work with or work for, or whatever it might be. So I hope our kids are catching this, because it will serve them so well and have less just just chaos with all the friendships and relationships as they go along. But we're talking about it at home. We're like, take the high road, fly above the clouds, don't get in the drama. Reduce
the emotional shrapnel in life.
And as I'm older, like I said, I'm less tired when I don't get involved in all that stuff. I have limited amounts of energy, and now I just need to reserve it for what matters most. And right now what matters most is my family, and making sure I can come home and listen to their day instead of being totally out of it. I don't have anything left for them. So that's important too, for us to reserve our energy. So anything else to add before we ask people to definitely get your friends on this podcast if you can, because I think if you're a working parent, you're probably enjoying a lot of the topics we bring up, and hopefully it's helping.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think for high functioning couples, they're both working, they're just going at it in life. We'd love for them to leave a comment even below on YouTube. What is one key takeaway that stuck out to you from this conversation today? But we'd be honored if you'd follow, share with a friend, spread the word with others, and stick around, because really our conversations, we're aiming for you to have free online mentoring from the lessons we've learned along the way. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Something New Show, where we learn how to create a life worth celebrating.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow the Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.